Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up
All that jam.
All That Jam, Quick Hit. Pete Lavezzoli on Jazz is Dead.
Let's look at that a little more. We mentioned the Live Dead before. You had the Live Dead 69. You have Jazz is Dead. Jazz is Dead obviously plays a wider swath of what the Grateful Dead did. How do you approach those two things if you're going in with a set thing? Live Dead 69, which you're playing, whereas Jazz is Dead has all the Wake of the Flood stuff and
we began this version of Jazz is. I mean, obviously, the original Jazz is Dead from 1998. It's 25 years back. Was with Alphonso Johnson,
right.
but also with Billy Cobham, with Jimmy Herring,
Pete
and
Lavezzoli.
Yeah. So this version, later versions of Jazz is Dead had a different approach, maybe a little more of a jazz fusion approach. This version of Jazz is Dead with Steve Kimmock and with Bobby Lee Rogers and myself is more of the more old school jazz approach. Let's say maybe like the Miles Davis, John Coltrane approach to jazz instead of like the Mahavishnu Orchestra Weather Report style of jazz. And it's less structured. This version of Jazz is Dead is more open-ended in the way that we improvise, and it's very psychedelic. I mean, and psychedelic in using that word in a way that does not necessarily have to do anything with have anything to do with psychedelic drugs, but just that kind of psychoactive mind state that you get into where so many different sensations and impressions are possible, and you can have these, you can go into these interior journeys in your mind, and you can visualize different things in a way that feels very psychedelic. You can get that from music very powerfully, and listening to music and playing music. So this version of Jazz is Dead, to me, is an amazing experience, and I'm very thankful to be a part of it because Steve Kimmock is one of the most inspired guitarists that I've ever played with, and to be able to play with him and to interact with him and to listen to what he's doing, and he listens to me and to us, and we listen to each other, and we have no idea where it's going to go. We do the Wake of the Flood material, which is a great album for that, because that was the first album in Grateful Dead history that was the real departure for them. Before Wake of the Flood, it was Europe 72, which still had Pigpen,
right,
still had that original Grateful Dead Pigpen influence.
And Wake was also the first on their own label. They started their own label, their own touring company, their own truck company.
Yeah, but musically, it was, I mean, the music on Wake of the Flood, it's a real departure. This is the beginning of the band, completely post Pigpen, and opening up into a vocabulary with Keith Godshaw that's completely more jazz and classically informed. The Weather Report suite, Eyes of the World, that material doesn't seem like it would have been possible in 1969 or 1970.
And also, it's also when Mickey wasn't there, and I've always said it's my favorite Grateful Dead because Billy wasn't restrained by having to do what Mickey was doing. He was free to.
Yeah, it's you get different blessings from different aspects of that. When Billy and Mickey are together, they do something that nobody else in music can do. Mickey is so unique that any drummer, myself, any drummer that loves Grateful Dead music and has a feel for playing the drums any of us who do that, we can find a way to get into the Bill Kreutzmann mind frame of how he would play. But there really is nobody out there that can do Mickey. It doesn't matter which Grateful Dead doesn't. I mean, we all know it. Nobody can do Mickey except for Mickey. Nobody has all of his instruments and the way that he uses them and the way that he creates his. And I'm mostly talking about drums and space, but also just in the midst of playing the songs. Nobody. I mean, Mickey is such an original. Nobody else can do Mickey Hart. There's a lot of bands, because Bill Kreutzmann is more of a traditional drummer playing the drum kit, and works with a lot of approaches to drumming that come from jazz, and R&B. There are a lot of ways that we can work with the Kreutzmann approach. Nobody can do Mickey Hart. So that's always been very fascinating to me. But to get back to the Bill Kreutzmann thing on his own, it's true that when Billy was on his own, and this was also, and Keith Godshaw had a lot to do with this, because they couldn't have done this before Keith Godshaw.
Right.
They needed Keith to have his jazz vocabulary, and it opened all of them up. And that's one of the main things that helped open Kreutzmann up, and Phil Lesh too. The things that Phil is doing on the bass are
Eyes of the World is one of the best studio performances ever.
revolutionary things for a rhythm section to be doing, Phil and Bill. The fluidity, the elasticity, the musicality of the bass and drums in that period, 72, 73, 74, is staggering. When you hear what those guys are doing with Garcia and with Weir and his chord shapes, and with Keith, it's staggering what they're doing musically. And so that's the zone that we in Jazz is Dead, we aspire to get into that zone. So the Wake of the Flood material is the launch pad for that. But then we'll go back and we'll do Dark Star, and we'll do the 11, and we'll move a little further forward and do Estimated Prophet and the Terrapin Suite. Estimated Prophet is a hell of a lot of fun to play, because you have all of these different possibilities in F sharp minor. You're playing in 7, and then you can jump off of the 7 and just go. But there are so many different things musically and modally that the guitars and the bass can do with Estimated Prophet. Bob Weir, another thing about the Grateful Dead, in the sense that they are connected they are very similar to the Beatles, in the sense that the Beatles had 2 great composers. 3. George Harrison, great composer too. But, we really understand that George came into his own more so after the Beatles. But with the Beatles, you've got Lennon and McCartney. In the Grateful Dead, you've got this incredible composer, instrumentalist, Jerry Garcia. You also have Bob Weir, who grew into being a great composer of his own. Incredible. Think about the musical structures of the Weather Report Suite, Saint of Circumstance, Victim or the Crime. He's working with such unusual melodies and chord shapes, so for a band like the Grateful Dead, and the writing relationships, Garcia had Hunter, Bob Weir had John Barlow, so you have these incredible relationships and a balance between the Jerry approach, the Bobby approach of the songwriting and the singing. It just opens up so many different things, and so for us, we have such great material to work with, but we take it in the spirit of being in the moment, improvising, flowing with it, not knowing where it's going to go. And it always goes exactly where it needs to go. And we don't know where that's going to be. We'll know when we get there.
I've had a chance to watch a few shows there. Do you guys plan on, is this a continuing endeavor, or is this something that?
Yeah, we fell in love. We so fell in love with how we play together as a quartet, this band, that as soon as we began rehearsing in January, from the first day of rehearsal, we're like, oh, this is magnificent. I mean, we felt that from the minute we began rehearsing. We just, oh, this is fantastic. Everybody's listening to each other. Nobody's trying to do anything, quote unquote. Nobody in the band is trying to play something or do something. Instead, we're all just respecting the music, respecting each other, listening to each other, contributing what feels right, and always paying attention to what's happening around us in the music with no ego, just absolute respect for each other, for the music, and and that all changes when somebody gets on stage and they want to do something, you know. But that doesn't happen in this band, and that became clear from the very beginning at our first rehearsal and at our first show when we actually got out and played. We just love each other as musicians, so we all have different things that we're doing. Everybody has different projects, but we are making this a priority. We have a tour in August, we have a tour in December. We're going to be scheduling tours for next year, and we're going to be doing this as much as we can. We
Changing
love.
albums? Are you going to be? Is it going to be focused on Wake of the Flood all the time?
Oh no, I mean, we only did that for the January tour just because we wanted to honor the completeness of the Wake of the Flood album. At this point now, we're just opening it up to playing whatever we want to play. So at this point now, we don't know if we're going to do all of the Wake of the Flood stuff or if we do something from any other part of the. It's at this point, that was something to kind of give us a framework for the January, for the first tour.
Right.
So that every night we were going to play and we wanted the audience to know that every night they were going to hear the entire Wake of the Flood album. And that was the framework for that opening tour that we did. And now it's just, whatever we want to play, whatever it's going to be totally unplanned.
If you are enjoying All That Jam, please like and subscribe to our social media channels at All That Jam Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, or visit our website, allthatjampod.com. Make sure to sign up for our email list and tune in every week for new episodes.
Also, look for full interviews on our YouTube channel. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long.